Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to the Dream Plan Start Grow show. My name is Allison Turner. This is the third interview that I'm streaming, and today I am super honored to have with me Charlie Martin, who is the Executive Director of NPI of the Palm Beaches, which stands for Network Professionals, Inc. It's a networking group in the Palm Beach County area, and she owns the franchise for all of Palm Beach County. So I'm going to go ahead and bring her to the stage, and we're going to talk a little bit about some networking tips as well as kind of her history, because her history is really fascinating, and how she got to do what she's doing now.
Good morning.
Hello, Charlie. Welcome. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you.
Glad we could finally make this happen. I know it's been a long time coming. So.
But we're here now.
Yep, exactly. We're here now. So I just did a brief introduction before I brought you up to the stage on, your ownership of NPI and what NPI is. And so how did you, because I know you've got a kind of a varied background, including like restaurant ownership and living in other countries and all this different. So how did you actually get to where you are now when you bought this? I guess it's kind of like a franchise for Palm Beach County. Like, how did you decide to do that?
Well, I had moved here from Egypt. That was my last duty station. And I had made the decision it's time to get back to the United States because my mom was getting old, et cetera, et cetera. So I came back from Egypt and landed in Fort Lauderdale and decided this is not for me. I've been on islands all over the world, and all of a sudden I've got 6 lanes of 95. So I immediately got a car and went down Federal Highway, up Federal Highway. And the minute I saw Welcome to Boca, that big sign that separates the two, I knew this was for me. So as luck would have it, during the year, I dated a lot because I was brand new here. And one of the guys that I dated asked me if I would help him with his marketing and represent him on this Broward County NPI. So I went there. I did. The owner of NPI at that time asked me if I would like to have a franchise. At that time, it was called a license. And I thought, what the heck? And that's how I started NPI of the Palm Beaches. It graduated into the franchise, and now I'm total. And that's been 23 years ago.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't realize that you were representing someone in a different NPI group. I didn't realize that was how it had happened. So
exactly. And yeah. It was the guy I was representing was an electrical contractor. And so that's the owner at the time said, I'm going to make you an offer you can't refuse. And I thought, okay, let's see what that could be. And so he offered me the licenseship for Palm Beach County. I knew no one, Alice.
Yeah, well,
I knew no one. So there was another networking thing, a fast networking that was arriving around from Michigan about the same time that I was looking to get into this and tried to figure out how I'm going to find members. So I joined 2 volunteer groups, and each of them I had partners, and each of them helped me to grow the chapters. And with either their families or their friends or people that they knew. So on this speed dating type networking, I got paid for that. And I found out that, okay, here's my audience. Here are my potential members. And that's how it began, Allison. That's exactly how it began. After a year of that, then people were coming to me, and all of a sudden I became known as the networker. Yep. And now it's interesting because I will be talking to someone and say, oh, you're Charlie Martin. I think I knew you from the past. And
way back when.
That's how it started.
Yeah, no, that's a great story. And I know, hey, Jack just jumped on here to say hello. So that's a great story. And I think, it is a testimonial to the power of networking, that you were representing a different company altogether 23 plus years ago, and then got offered this license up in Palm Beach County, which has turned into the franchise for Palm Beach County. And then, obviously you did other networking to bring in the members to start the different chapters. So, I think
And my first member was when I signed the contract, Allison. I was working as a volunteer with Hospice by the Sea, and I went into my shift being all excited, and I was telling my partner about it, and he says, "Wait a minute, my daughter's a realtor. She would be interested in this." And so that was my first member, and that was through my work at Hospice by the Sea.
Okay. That's great. And do you have any members that are still with you 23 years later?
Not 23. The longest term members I have are 18 and 19 years.
Wow.
That just tells me it's working. But in the beginning, what was so interesting is people thought, okay, I'm going to join. I'm going to get enough business, and then I will get to take care of my business, rather than planning to how they're going to move forward if they succeed in getting the business, not to stop and say, okay, I've had enough business. I'm going to focus on that right now. And
Right.
Unfortunately, that happened many times.
Yeah. And I think that is kind of it's the mindset of some business owners. I've run across that, where you're like, now you're overwhelmed, but you didn't plan for, what if I get all this business and then what do I do with it? And how do I scale basically and add more people or automate or whatever you need to do to handle the additional business?
And one of my members, Joe Conway, who is IT, as well as various other technical things, he did exactly what we told him to do, or what we suggested he do. He started adding on the people. He started improving his website. He started doing all of these things that enabled him to stay with me all these years. And so it works if you do it right. We love to say that. It works if you work it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I think, sometimes when people start in business, and even some people that have been in business, I still see people that, they walk into a room wherever it is, not necessarily NPI, but other maybe chambers or something like that. And they're just starting to hand out business cards. They don't ask you about anything about what you do. They just like hand out their business card, and they're going from person to person and handing out the cards. And you're like, who are you? Like, who, like, I don't even know, you're a realtor or you're whatever it doesn't even matter what the business is, because I've seen it with various businesses. And I think NPI and then, even chambers, if you do it the right way, are great opportunities to build relationships. And it's more, I always tell people, it's not about walking into a room and like, okay, I'm going to get this great client today. It's more about building the relationship. And then, how can you help them, whether it's giving them business, whether it's, making a connection for them, or, whatever it is. And then they turn around and think of you later about how can they help you.
Right, exactly. And I don't know anyone who went to any of those networking events that went there to buy something.
Right.
Everybody went there to sell.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's, still obviously, I'm in the Delray chamber and the Boca chamber as well. And, I think that's a lot of the people, the more serious networkers, I should say, let me say it that way. That'll, put it out there. I think they understand that building the relationship and, creating the value is the most important thing. And that's how they then, quote unquote, sell eventually.
Exactly. But you have to ask first, do you want to be a member of my NPI group is not the question I want to ask, because I don't know that I even want them at that point.
Well, yeah, you want quality, not quantity.
Quality, exactly. And when I'm at these events, and even early in the beginning, when I really needed the members and needed to get the exposure, I still didn't ask them to join. I asked them, what can I do for you? How can I make your business more profitable? I've heard you say that many times in your infomercials and presentations. And that's the point that we want to get across. By the way, Allison, they say that in order to be a good networker, there are certain things you have to do. One, belong to a structured networking group. That does not mean that you don't belong to the chamber. You do belong to chambers, whatever, as many as in your area. But the whole point is that you have to be proactive in structured networking, proactive in the chamber as you are. And that makes the exposure good for you. And it also makes people realize you can help them. And that's what we want to project. We can help people.
Yeah, I remember when I first joined the chamber, it was probably 9 years ago, maybe. And that was first prior to NPI. So maybe it was 10 years. I don't even know. I think I went to like 95% of the events, and it was the Delray Chamber here in Delray. And I mean, I would go to every grand opening that I could make. I would go to like the Contacts and Cocktails if they had some breakfast thing, or government affairs, or they had all the different things. I mean, I think I went to like 95%. I mean, obviously, like I couldn't go to Chairman's Club because I wasn't a Chairman's Club member, but otherwise I was pretty much at everything. And I mean, it probably took a good year and a half just to brand, I mean, me and then the business in general. But then people would know, oh, you're connected. And at that point it was Business Consultants of South Florida 10 years ago. So you're connected to Business Consultants of South Florida. And even when I rebranded, I mean, it took time to drop that name, because I mean, some people still associate me to that name, that Business Consultants of South Florida. So obviously, I mean, I did it right, because because people are still associating me with that, back in that, especially Delray Chamber members specifically, I should say. And I think that's. So NPI, like, because it's more structured than some of the chamber, because like you said, you have to be proactive in the chamber, meaning you go through, I mean, I've already gone through the calendar of the two chambers and looked at like our schedule, Jack and my schedule, and put stuff on it for the month of January based on their calendars, and did that last week, or maybe the week before, actually before January. So, just so we knew where things were and when things were and what we wanted to go to and things. But I mean, that's being proactive as opposed to looking at the calendar, the day of, and you're like, oh, I can't go to that because I've already got another event. But NPI being that structured, so maybe you can explain a little bit how NPI is a little bit different because it's structured. So it's kind of forces, I don't know if force is the right word, but you have to be intentional, because of the structure of NPI.
Well,
so you want to explain that structure a little bit?
Yeah, it's interesting how this was designed. This was designed 34 years ago. Oh, by the way, in Michigan, where the original owner was, and at that time he had about 13 chapters. But he had come from a networking group called, and familiar to many of your members, I'm sure, listeners, would be the LATIP group. And two vice presidents of LATIP moved forward with their dreams, and they opened BNI and then NPI. So the beginning was from another networking group that was very structured in the 60s. And it progressed into what I'm doing today, what the other executive directors are doing in various other regions. We've improved from that point. At that point, in the beginning, they just turned in faxes for their reports and things like that. And it really didn't matter whether they attended or not. It was structured, and they just expected everybody to realize that structure meant you had to do things.
Right.
I'm now having a commitment, an induction ceremony, where the new member is told what he's expected to do, and that's followed up by new member training, of course, and what makes it work. Then we, as the chapter, welcome them, and we give him our commitment. So,
Right.
like, how important is your commitment to you? That's how I see it. And if they're really wanting to move forward, like my members who have been with me so many years, I've watched their babies being born and now graduating from high school. I mean, really. But
Yep.
it also means that if you are committed, we're going to hold you accountable. And that's what makes the difference with structured networking. You must be accountable. The chamber, yeah, they'll praise you for being, a good member, etc. But my praise is going to those who maintain the structure, who are there every week, who follow the commitment of finding a alternate or a substitute if they cannot attend. That's what makes a chapter move forward. That's exactly what makes, if everybody is on that same page of commitment and following up and doing the best job you can do for your referrals, it's going to work for you. It's
Right.
going to work. We hear it said many times, the more you give, the more you receive. And I believe that to be a fact. We do believe that if you're giving referrals, if you're having your one-on-ones, people will get to know, like, and trust you. And that's part of the commitment. You literally have to do those things in order to be successful. And that's explained by our new member training, when as soon as someone gets in and gets approved as a new member, then they go through not only one session, but various sections of how to make this work for you. That's what we're there for. We're not there to criticize. We're not there to attack. We're there to help them get the business. And if they follow the instructions, they get the business. It's just that natural.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I think that's it's, I shouldn't say it's easy. But I mean, again, it's being intentional. And because you are, it's a little bit different, for those who are listening, it's a weekly commitment versus, a lot of, say, chamber leads groups are twice a month, or some other networking opportunities that are out there might be once a month, and you get to that next month and you're like, oh yeah, I forgot about these people. Like, what do they do? What do they do again? I mean, when you hear obviously the infomercials every week of your group, and then you have the opportunity also to sub in other groups, as long as you don't conflict with someone in that group, I think it's a great way to broaden your network, but also get your message out there consistently. And have that.
Rarely does a person sub in another chapter, substitute for someone who is missing in that chapter. The person who can't attend that meeting reaches out to one of the other members that are not represented in your chapter, and to see if they will sub. Invariably, they walk away with business.
Yeah.
Invariably, someone will ask them to do a one-on-one to learn more about them. So the value is not only there for you in your chapter, the value is there for extending your sphere of influence throughout all of the chapters. And that's my goal, is people to understand the value of subbing in another chapter.
Yeah. No, it kind of puzzles me when people choose not to sub. So the ones that, I mean, there's some that don't have the opportunity, like a realtor, or there's certain categories that really are represented in every chapter, so you can't sub. But I mean, the ones that do have the opportunity,
call and see if those people who are in that chapter want to have a one-on-one, because even though you may not be able to sub in that chapter, you certainly can have those one-on-ones to establish relationships with those you think can help you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because I think ultimately, I mean, at least in my mind, I'm going to refer to who I think is the right person or company to do the job. For me, obviously I'm always going to give people within my group the highest respect, but sometimes someone may not be the best fit for whatever the job is. Maybe you think there's going to be a conflict of like personalities, or, I mean, there's things that can come up where maybe someone else is the better fit, or maybe you give two choices, or I mean, whatever it is. Because sometimes I get people that are like, hey, do you know a couple people that do this, and they want to make their own choice.
Right,
You know?
exactly.
So
And interesting, Allison, because you do I call you a professional networker, no matter what it is that you're involved in, because that's what you do. You are a professional at networking. You make it easy for other people. You extend your services to, I believe you recently subbed in another chapter where they had a program that they were giving, and you were helping them, contributing to their program because of the things you knew,
right.
no, and they didn't. So it's an asset to you, being able to go into a chapter, and especially at a time of training, to give your opinions
Right.
and your things that you know work for you. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, it was a perfect timing, because I know they were talking about social media and the ways to use social media. So I think it was it the public adjuster that was who was doing
the president was public.
Yeah, the president was doing so yeah, I was like, don't forget live streaming.
Exactly.
Like, that's the one thing you didn't mention out of all the different, because I mean, he had really good, accurate information overall as far as the different platforms he was talking about and things. But I was like, the one thing you missed is a live stream opportunity, because I know the algorithm picks that up a little bit differently for a lot of these platforms than just posting a video.
Right,
so I think that's.
And I think they're going to be using that as they go into their brand new in-person meeting at the Mariposa. We started there 7 years ago. We had to close, we had to close down because of the pandemic, the lockdown, etc., and all the craziness that followed after that. So not only could I not find venues, I couldn't find venues with appropriate good charges to make sure that the value is still there for my member.
Yeah.
And the Mariposa jumped in on that, and they gave us at the same rate that we had in the beginning. And one of the things that they have there as a server in our little private room is an opera singer. So sometimes he's serving the plate by singing an operatic song.
Wow.
It's, I love having the interest there. I love having the energy and the creativity that my members have. I get benefits from that. It's in my wheelhouse. Now I have something new to offer. And that makes it interesting. We want to keep the meeting as it's only an hour and 15 minutes. We want to keep that as lively as we can and as fresh as we can. And some people work it very well, and you're being one of them. And I don't have to say that, Allison. You know my.
I didn't pay you to say it. But what do you think the difference is? Because I know you took, how many chapters did you have at the beginning of the pandemic?
I had 14.
So you had 14 chapters, and obviously you took all of those virtual via Zoom for a long time.
3 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't even know what I was doing. I had no clue what Zoom was. I just started researching.
It was interesting because I know those platforms had been around. I had used a different one called Join Me at one point years ago. And I think Zoom was around, but I had chosen Join Me for whatever the reason. And but I think it's interesting. Now, how many chapters do you have today now?
I have 11.
Okay. So you had a little bit of attrition during the pandemic because I know some of the challenges, that I've seen is, obviously then moving from, because I think people got comfortable in the virtual setting, and you see that even in the business world of people are like, oh, well, wait a minute, I don't want to go back to the office now. I just want to work from home. I'm like, I'm good over there. I'm good. Even if they're working for another company, forget, they don't want to, they're comfortable now. And I think, then moving chapters back into person. So of those 11, how many chapters do you have that are in person?
I have Boca Central, Boca Dream Team, Delray Downtowners, and then the Jupiter chapter and the Wellington chapter.
So those are all in person.
Chapters that are in person meetings, and we've kept the negotiations for those lunches as good as we can do them.
Right.
You know, we weren't charging for lunches or meals before. What we did do during the pandemic was we had socials, and you know about those. We had socials, and we would accept, like, we would send an invoice out for maybe anywhere from $75 to $150, depending on the chapter sizes, and then have people then meet in person, which helped a lot, which did help a lot. You know, I remember how many times we all said, I didn't recognize you. I thought you were shorter.
Yeah, taller, shorter, fatter, thinner. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, because when you just see from like here up, you're like, oh, you look different.
There's more.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the part that I had to fight, was people saying, okay, I'm okay paying this much, but I'm not okay going to a venue and paying another $25, $30. Right. And I understand that. And that's my trial, is to find those places that can take us at those prices, and then turning the chapter into, come on, we're going back in person. When I have 3 that are looking for places to meet. Okay. And then I also have 3 who will not be meeting anything other than on Zoom. So not gonna fight the world.
No, I know one of which I'm in right now. But what's your take on the success of chapters like in person versus online?
This is interesting, because every time we take a vote before taking them into a venue, whether they would like to do that or not. And of the 2 that went in the first of the year, they did take a vote, and people said, oh, I'm going to quit if we go into that, because I'm used to paying $75 a quarter for socials, and now I have to pay $25 a week. I don't know that it's going to work for me. And I got all sorts of objections. However, when I took them to the venue,
sold itself.
Maybe I might lose 1 or maybe 2, but I can also put them into chapters that are going to remain on Zoom. But that's not the direction they want to go in. They wanted to remain in their chapter on Zoom and not have any growth. So, well, have to do what we have to do.
So are you seeing the chapters that are in person at this point growing faster than the ones on Zoom?
Oh, yes. I have 2 chapters that are pushing over. Hold on just 1 minute. I close this down. Pushing over to find venues and taking the vote, and then we don't pay attention to the vote, because we know at the end of the day, if they want to continue the structured networking, the getting the business, the making the alliances, creating your new sphere of influence, that's what we offer. So they have that opportunity to extend it even more. And then, of course, the subs can go to those in-person meetings and feel the excitement that's there. And that's what the difference is the excitement of being in person, the excitement of talking, giving your presentation to a live audience as opposed to a Zoom audience.
They're actually paying attention.
Exactly. And
not checking their email at the same time, which not everyone does, but some people do. It's funny, because I was subbing for someone at the Boca Dream Team. There we go. at the end of the year. And so I heard Julie Carlson give her presentation, and she had transferred from my chapter, Book of Royal, into that one, I don't know, a few months ago. And I'd heard her presentation before, but I kind of said to her at the end, I'm like, yeah, I picked up more out of your presentation this time than I did the first time. And she's like, well, that's interesting. And I don't know if it was the exact same presentation, but I think that was the first time she was presenting to that group. So it was more of a kind of a bigger overview of a lot of what she does. And so it was just kind of funny that for some reason, I picked up more, at that time than I had.
You were focused. You were focused.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's, because I think, when you're on Zoom, and I think Zoom was a godsend for when it was necessary, for sure. But I think when you're on Zoom, there's so many, your spouse or partner could be talking to you, your dog could be barking in the background,
baby crying.
Things just, my dog likes to jump up on my lap. He likes to be on Zoom with me. So, he's like, who's this? Let me go see who, and then everyone's looking at the dog instead of who's speaking, because.
Exactly. What I find it's interesting is I don't believe that many Zoom people understand that we can see and hear everything that's going on. And when they answer the phone and forget to mute, and you're hearing the whole conversation of,
Well, and I don't understand how we are still there. I mean, it's 3.5 years into it now, or is it 4? It's almost 4, right?
Almost
20 to 24. Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, almost 4, and how we're still forgetting to mute, but that's a whole different issue, because I'm on multiple different things. I mean, I still have meetings that I'm, on Zoom, or certain, I'm the chair of the Delray Chamber Education Fund, and, our exec meeting is on Zoom, which is fine, and then our board meeting is hybrid, because some people travel and whatnot. It's just, it's worked out to be hybrid for now. And, it allows us to hit quorum and all that good stuff.
Right. Exactly.
But, yeah, so I see it still on certain things where I'm like, okay, how long have we been on this platform now? We're still making these mistakes.
The judges were holding court on Zoom.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think there's something about, because I do a lot of, I mean, you see, I do a lot of live streaming and a lot of online stuff anyway, just given what I'm doing and trying to, my goal is to reach a larger audience, especially for the coaching side and helping people starting businesses and whatnot. So I do a lot of the online side. So I think, I think there is a value to in person, for other, when I'm here and joining things in my area versus the online stuff that I'm, with. Right. I think there is a value of being in person and seeing people and interacting. And I mean, it's just a different feel, I guess.
To me, it has more value, Allison.
Yeah.
It has more value being in person. And factored into that is not the cost of the lunch or the breakfast. Factored into that is the ability to see and be with the people, understand what they're saying, being able to focus on the meeting instead of who's calling in, who's right. knocking at the door, or what have you. It worked for me in the beginning. It worked tremendously. By June of 2020, it was mandatory by that time. If you wanted to remain in networking in NPI, you had to show up for the Zoom meetings.
Yeah.
And that was the beginning. And they didn't have to pay anything except their annual membership dues. So the cost of doing business, even though it was less business.
Yeah. Oh, so you saw those numbers that it was less, because I know you track all the referrals. So that was actually less on Zoom than it was when they were in person.
And that's what we see now. I was mentioning the 2 chapters, the Jupiter and the Wellington chapter, and how I don't think that they really are competing with each other, but they certainly are paying attention to the website and seeing, okay, how many members do they have now? Oh my goodness, look at that. Maybe we need to make sure that we can get these same categories into our groups, because that's the whole point. Not every chapter has the same categories filled
Right.
as other chapters. So the value of going and being in that other meeting,
Yeah.
being a sub, there's tremendous value there.
Yeah.
Bill Hood went to the meeting this morning, the Jupiter meeting. His chapter is on Zoom. He just gets so excited when he gets to be in person, you know. So
yeah. No, I mean, he's a great networker anyway, and obviously in the auction business, you know, that he's in. I mean, he can go to pretty much any chapter, right?
exactly.
So
exactly.
yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I know Jack just commented, I prefer meeting in person. I like human contact, but alas, like Zoom, sometimes it becomes more practical because of distance. So, but I think it's, you know, it's interesting because people, as I said, some people join during the Zoom time. So I understand that they never experience the, you know, having to go to the meeting every week, and, you know, like where you get in a car and drive, and especially if it's like first thing in the morning, and, you know, you have kids and all the stuff that goes around scheduling. But I mean, I've heard it more from even the people that experienced it before we went to Zoom, that, you know, it's more that they don't want to go back in person the ones that don't want to go back in person, I should say.
Right.
So it's just an interesting dynamic, and some people are torn, you know, like
exactly. However, I might mention this. There were quite a few births during this pandemic time. And my members who would normally take off for having the baby and, you know, getting organized at home and all of that, they don't miss meetings all the time anymore. They are right back 2 or 3 days after the birthing, and being proactive, because they realize that that's how they're going to be getting their business to afford this new baby.
Right. Yeah. I mean, so what would you say, like someone new in networking, or so say they're a brand new business and they've never had to network before because, you know, they've just done whatever, they've worked for someone else, and, you know, whatever the job is. And, you know, what would be like a tip you would give them kind of out of the gate?
Well, people are kind of intimidated by networking. Those who have not tried it before, who are new entrepreneurs. I've seen it many, many times. I've seen people who will say, I hate talking in front of people, you know, and so we have built into NPI the benefits of belonging to a networking group. It helps you grow your sphere of influence. It helps you grow your business. It teaches you how to be more proactive in a chapter. And that's what I want to focus on. I want them to understand the value of networking is not just that you're in front of people. I had a member who was a long-term member for many, many, many years, a banker, and Jacqueline Qualters, and she's still one of my favorite people. She was a banker in the Boca Central chapter. Unfortunately, PNC, her bank, withdrew all of the networkers out of all networking groups. And that and I just miss her so much. When she first came in, here's how she gave her infomercial. I don't like talking in front of people. I'm scared of it. I don't know how to do this.
Yep.
And a year later, she was membership chair, followed up by vice president, followed up by president. And that also encompassed her other networking abilities, like the Women in Excellence. She became the president of that. So I watched her grow. I watched her grow from that person who couldn't look at people to the person who is winning all sorts of awards as a business banker. This is how she started. This is what got her to the place where she's at now. And I take a lot of pride in that.
Yeah. No, I've certainly seen that with certain people that are super nervous when they first start and like, I've never done this before. And they're, like you said, reading off a phone or whatever it is, or stammering through, like they have something in their head, but they're trying to remember what the heck it was and stammering through it. And then, slowly over time, they become a little bit more comfortable and definitely achieve what they want to achieve.
Exactly. And that's the part I love about when we have our new members and we tell why they are renewing. And most of them are in that same position. I'm renewing because NPI has given me the ability to grow my business, but they're not only meaning grow their business, but grow their ability to be a networker, because you met one member in the Voca Dream Team who doesn't stop praising me for giving him the opportunity of growing his business, of having this family. And I don't know whether you realize or not, that was on my vision board, was creating a family, because I didn't have anybody here when I arrived. And so now I have a whole family of networkers that support me, that come and help me do things now. So
you got to go. I know you had to go to, or you got to go, the opportunity to go to like 12 holiday parties, right? Or something like that.
Oh my God.
Yes. So, yeah.
So that was the interesting part. Yes.
So I want to flip, I have one question, like going back to your kind of history, because I know you've lived in a lot of different countries, you've owned restaurants. I don't know I'm sure I don't know all of what you've done, but what has been a contributing factor of your different backgrounds, to then come back to the United States and, launch this? I mean, you shared at the beginning how you launched it, but I think, sometimes people feel they get too old per se, to like, oh, I can't have a new business. I don't want that responsibility. I don't want whatever it is, or I'm too old to whatever, I mean, I think you have an interesting story on kind of the different places. So can you just briefly touch on kind of your background for the years?
My background, Allison, was actually in resort management.
Okay.
So these places that I was at in various parts of the world, the Caribbean, the Mediterranean, those were Greece. Those were when I was able to build another part of the networking business, because networking is what you have to do when you're running a resort. It's there. You have to be kind to the people. You have to want to improve your occupancy rate. You want to do all of that. So I had this background of helping people, of creating the opportunities for them in the resort business. And many of mine were 5-star resorts, very boutique resorts. So it was a little more interesting charging back then, what it was 20 some years ago now, charging $500 for that room, that today is now worth like maybe over $1,500. Wow. But that started me in actual networking. I would call people, I was trying to build the hotel business, the occupancy of the hotel, and it just fell into place when I came back to the United States and was given this opportunity for NPI of the Palm Beaches. It just felt natural to me to come and do that. And I also add every time, my first thing about networking was when I was 18 years old and had a summer that I needed to go to work. I was living in Washington, D.C. at the time, and my church deacon, the head of the church deacons, got me a job at the United States Congress in one of the offices. So that wow, this was pretty easy. I just knew someone who was able to help me get into this, and I didn't even ask for it. So
Yeah.
it just, those are the things that I think helped me create this new part of my vision board. And this was the part of the vision board that has now come into more effect as we move along, the number of chapters, the things that I can do now over and above what I could do managing resorts. I just feel I'm more beneficial to people doing what I'm doing now. And when you consider 23 years of helping thousands of members increase their business,
Yeah.
I'm pretty happy about that.
Yeah. No, that's quite the legacy.
It is, you know,
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah, it is. So I'm assuming if someone was interested in NPI of the Palm Beaches, the best place is to go to the website, the NPI Advantage website.
Exactly, exactly. And see, and it's just been recently done where the creativity was there by someone who knew what they were doing. Not any of our members, unfortunately, because that's how corporate operates.
Yep.
But I do love it. I love the way it presents networking. I love the way it tells you what we're about. I love the way it explains what networking is. And that's what I think people need to know before calling us to have them come as a member.
Right. Right. And then if I have one question, so I always ask this question at the end, I'm going to tailor it a little bit differently. So if someone was male or female, kind of in the second half of their life, because sometimes I get this in my coaching side, people are trying to, even especially women, they're coming out of either being a stay-at-home mom, they're, get a divorce, whatever it is, some kind of change in their life, or they're just sick of, the corporate world or whatever they've been doing. But sometimes they have that lack of confidence in kind of really spearheading their own company and spearheading kind of where they want to go forward. So if you were going to give like one tip that's helped you kind of throughout your various careers and of what would help someone that is in the second half of their life kind of spearhead their own journey and their own new business, what would that be?
I'm in my second part of my life.
There's a reason I asked you this question, but
I started NPI of the Palm Beaches when I was 60 years old. I don't feel that was a hindrance to me. I felt that I was more confident in doing what I was doing now. I felt that my wisdom was there to help people. And because of all the various different things I've done in my life, which included sailing the Pacific for 5 years, it enables me to have that confidence, that wisdom that one needs when they're starting a business, no matter what age they are. But I can honestly say I wasn't concerned about being 60 when I started this, because I had already developed in less than a year many contacts already here, and
right.
and that was through my volunteering, because volunteering is one of the main beginnings of networking, actually, is being there to contribute to the community, etc. So yeah, I was 60 when I started NPI.
That's great.
Don't need to tell you what that amounts to.
How to do the math. No, but I think, you just mentioned volunteering and how that is networking. And I think that's true. And I mean, I'm always passionate about giving back to some cause, whether you serve on a board, whether you do, I don't know, whatever you do. I mean, fundraising for someone, even sometimes people just put a, box at the holiday time, toys for whatever, to collect toys. I mean, just giving back in some way, shape, or form, because it ties you into the community more and giving back to the community in whatever way that is. I know at our NPI social that was at my house, we collected toys to give to Eat Better, Live Better, which she was able to come pick those up from me. And I know she got toys from various places, but for her people, because she always gives the toys, so the parents are actually the ones giving it. So it's not like the charity's giving it to them, the children, which I love. So I think that giving back piece is critical in owning a business, or, whether you own a business or you don't own a business, but it is a great way to network and a great way to kind of broaden your horizon, and also just to appreciate kind of what you have, because you often see what people don't have out there, that, we're one of the wealthiest countries in the world. And yet there's people that are starving, homeless, all these things that, happen. All Delray schools are Title I, hence the Delray Chamber Education Fund, which is a nonprofit arm of the Delray Beach Chamber. Like, we're, raising money to give to the schools for the teacher supplies and things that unfortunately there's not funding for at this point in time, to help these schools improve and to make the Delray students basically viable candidates for working for us then down the road, once they complete high school and go on to whether it's vocational, college, whatever they choose to do.
And I agree with that. In the beginning, 2011 took place, and I realized that being a widow of a Marine officer, I had to do what I could do to help those men in those countries, Afghanistan and Iraq and all. And so NPI adopted platoons. We sent over 5,000 care packages.
Oh, wow.
To our platoons, that each time we get a new platoon, because they come home, then we start all over again. And that, to me, that was a blessing. And I think to everybody that was a blessing. And then to the Toys for Tots, Marine, of course, again, our regional holiday parties, which we were able to do back then because of the Mayaku being so accommodating to us. We, in the 3 years that we were doing it there with the Bring a Toy for Tots, we had collected over 8,000 toys.
Wow.
So I love my groups because they feel obligated to take care of these things, because it is part of networking.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And if anyone had any questions specifically for you, is it still the best place is npiadvantage.com, or is there a different way to reach you?
NPI, Charlie at npiflorida.com. That will close down at some point. It just hasn't done that yet. I did move all the chapters out of there so that no one is confused by it anymore. And the NPI Advantage is kept totally up to date. So,
okay. Yeah. No, I know people still find that site. It's not the prettiest site, but hopefully whoever owns that domain keeps it, and just because you can easily forward, because even I've forwarded like old email addresses into like my current Allison at Cat Media. So that way, because I still have people that have the Allison at bcosf.com, and because I still get emails that are forwarding in, because people haven't, for whatever reason, I'm on an email list or whatever it is, it just has never updated. So it's very easy just to forward that in. So whoever owns it should keep it and just forward the email.
NPI Florida owns it.
Yeah.
We're in the process now. Not everybody is Charlie Martin. I've come to accept that.
I understand that more than you know. I'm like,
and so I decided that I was not going to tolerate any more than, the old site was easier than the new site. Well, no, it isn't. They just haven't ever gone to the new site. And once I bring that up, then they start going to the new site. Recently, I had all my president put it on their updating emails so that people would go there. Still, Allison, not all of my members have visited this website.
Really?
I don't want to embarrass myself by taking a poll of that.
Yeah. Well, as I said, once it goes down, hopefully they just forward it into the new site.
Exactly. But not all of the other
Chapters.
directors have kept theirs updated on that site, never mind on the new site. So,
Well, that's not your problem, though. So,
not my problem.
At the end of the day, that is not your problem. So, I've learned to I can only control this right here. So, so I can't control it.
Amount of time.
Yeah, exactly. So, but thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you for
Appreciate
having me. It's been fun, Allison. It's been fun.
Glad we could finally make it happen. And thank you everyone for joining the Dream Plan Start Grow show. Again, my name is Allison Turner. If you have any questions for me, you can go to theallisonturner.com. Theallisonturner.com. I will throw that up on the screen if I can find it. There we go. And you can either set up a complimentary consultation if you just have any questions about networking or how to kind of get your message out there a little bit more. I'm happy to help. Thank you. And I look forward to seeing you again next time.
Thank you. Thank you for your partnership, Allison.
Yeah, absolutely.
Goodbye, everyone.